Hey, it's me again, and it's raining again, although it's not raining that hard this time. I'm in a nice little park here with a pillar and some benches and pathways and bushes and things in it. Right across the street from the Vitebsky Vokzal, which is where in a couple of hours I'll be taking a train out of Russia. It's kind of funny, there is actually in Russia, there is a Baltijski Vokzal, a Baltic train station, but it only goes to suburban areas outside of Saint Petersburg. If you actually want to go to the Baltic states, like Estonia or Latvia, you do not take a train from the Baltic train station, you leave here from Vitebsky Vokzal. This is where the international trains in that direction leave from. So, yeah, I'm here in St. Petersburg for the first time in 7 years. Man, it's been 7 years since I was here in Old St. Pete. And honestly, not that much has changed. I didn't end up making a video about being in St. Petersburg because really not much has changed here. I'm just going to take a little shelter from the rain under this roof here for a bit because I don't want my camera to get too wet. So, yeah, not much has changed here in St. Petersburg. The only thing that's really changed is the one thing that seems different, that I noticed that's really different, is now they have security on the metro here as well. So before it used to be you just go into the metro, the subway system, and you just walk in. I mean, you'd need to put a token into the turnstile machine in order to get through the turnstile, but that was it. But now they have metal detectors, they have security guards at every entrance, and if you have a bag, they usually want to check your bag with a metal detector. That's all new. I wouldn't have thought it would be practical or possible to have metal detectors and security screening on an urban subway system because there are just too many passengers going in constantly. But they've done it. They did it in Moscow and they've done it here as well. So that's a little unfortunate that such security measures were taken, but that's life. And that's really the only thing that I noticed that's here that's different here in the 7 years since I was last here. They still use tokens, unlike in Moscow where they have those electronic cards that you put onto the card reader. Here they still use the metal tokens, so you stick a metal token into the reader, and you can also buy cards. Like if you live here, or if you regularly ride the metro, you can also buy, I guess, RFID cards, or maybe they're NFC cards or whatever. But I just bought a few tokens since I was just here for a day. So yeah, other than that, I guess that's it. I don't really have much else to say about St. Petersburg, so once again I'll just say goodbye. And I did want to clarify a couple of comments that I made on my last day in Moscow, which in hindsight I think could be misinterpreted. So I want to clarify a couple of things. First, I was talking about internet censorship and saying that I think I said something to the effect of Russia can block what it wants. And in hindsight, I realized that my statements could be sort of taken as kind of apologist for, for oppression or censorship or something like that. So I want to make it clear, I'm not pro-censorship, but people get very sensitive about censorship, and they say that you can't censor our internet. The internet should be free. It's our internet. And I've never agreed with that for the very simple reason that it's not your internet. Who owns the internet? The internet is owned by big corporations. Do you know what the internet is? Ask any network engineer. They'll tell you the internet is a lot of network routers and a lot of fiber optic cables and other communications cables that connect those routers around the world. Who bought those cables and those routers? Who paid for them? Did you? If you paid like the millions or probably billions of dollars that it cost to buy all those racks full of networking equipment and all the cables that connect them all around the world, then it's your internet. When you bought that stuff, it's yours. Then it's your internet. If you didn't buy that personally, it is not your internet. It belongs to the companies that bought that networking equipment, and they can do with it what they want. I say this because people get very entitled and think they can do what they want on the internet. No, you can't. You can do what you're allowed to do on the internet. And I'm not saying that things should be censored. I mean, I think it's stupid that LinkedIn is blocked in Russia. Let's be honest. It is kind of silly. I don't really see much point in blocking LinkedIn. It doesn't seem like... I mean, what do people have to gain from that? I don't think people have anything to gain from it, but I mean, really, Russia has the right to control what goes in and out of the country. That is their right, and you know, as a government, they can control what they have control over. So, and obviously, not saying that they should abuse that power and that control, but I mean, let's be realistic. That's the world we live in. We live in a place where certain systems are controlled by certain people, and they will do what they want with it. And if you don't like it, you can complain if you want, but I don't think your complaints are gonna get you anywhere. I'm not trying to act as an apologist for anyone who's doing what they shouldn't be doing. I'm just saying that's how it is, and I don't see the point in getting really upset about it and saying, they can't do this, you can't control our internet, this must be stopped, we have to take action and do something. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not the kind of person to get furious about stuff like that, because very often people lose sight of the difference between, you know, little things like that, like blocking a website. People really lose sight of the difference between blocking a website and actual political oppression and abuse of people. There's a real difference between the two. And people conflate the two. People very often say, well, they're two sides of the same coin. Okay, you can look at it that way, but you're conflating two things that have almost nothing to do with each other. The other thing I wanted to mention is when I was talking about those police officers, and I got into kind of a longer spiel about how the laws are not necessarily that important in Russia, and I just wanted to clarify again, because I don't think I expressed that thought very well, because it was kind of hot and I was tired because I've been walking around all day. In Russia, as I said, there are laws in Russia, of course, but what you have to understand in Russia is that it's not always what's written into law that's important. Russia is built on the idea, I say built, obviously not physically built, but I mean, Russian society sort of has this idea in mind that there are things more important than the law. There are human principles, human values that transcend laws. And the reason I defend this idea is not because I'm against the rule of law as such, but because I don't think that you can codify human behavior or human decency. You cannot write a set of rules that dictates what is decent human behavior or how good people should behave. And so the reason why I sort of have an affinity for the Russian system, I say system even though it's not a system, Russian way of life, Russian way of thinking, is Russian society is structured on the idea of treating other people decently. For all that you hear about human rights abuses in Russia and things like that, the reality is that most Russian people are very decent people, and they place top priority on helping each other out, you know, helping your neighbor and treating each other well. That is the cornerstone, that is the foundation of Russian society. And it is not about what's written into law. It's not, people don't place that much importance on what's in the law. And, you know, I mean, if you think about it, no matter where you live, if you have a really good friend, like if your best friend was wanted by the police for some crime, let's say not murder, I mean, okay, murder or is, you know, murder or rape or something, that's something else. But if your best friend was wanted for some crime, even if you knew that he or she was guilty of it, you might want to try and protect them. You might want to help them get away from the police if it were possible. And that's just human nature. That's something that friends would do for each other. I mean, you can say what you want about people breaking the law and criminals should go to jail. Maybe that's true, but I mean, isn't it human nature to want to help the people closest to you, the people who are most important to you? And that's kind of an idea that's built into all of Russian society. So my point with what I was trying to say before is that in Russian society, in the Russian mentality, there are ideals, there are human ideals that stand above the law, that are more important than whatever is written in juridical law, in the code of laws. And I don't think there's a problem with that. I actually think that's, in a way, that's a great thing. It has a negative side, of course. I mean, on the negative side, it can lead to corruption. It can lead to nepotism. It can lead to, this good old boys club where, in German there's a saying, one hand washes the other. Meaning, like, one corrupt person does a favor for another, the other will do a favor for the first person. It goes like that, and that's the source of a lot of corruption in Russia. That's one of the reasons why Russia has problems with corruption. But on the other hand, it's also about neighbors helping neighbors. It's about family and friends sticking up for each other in the face of problems, and not just saying, oh, well, the law says this, this is written into law, you can't do that if it's not in the law. In Russia, the law is not that important. It's about who you are, how you act, how you live, how you treat people. And that's what I was saying before. If you treat people with respect in Russia, doesn't matter who they are, whether they're a cop or, some government official, doesn't matter if they're corrupt or not. If you treat people with respect, they will usually treat you with respect, and vice versa. If you don't treat them with respect, you will be making problems for yourself more than for them. That's the thing. That's why I don't understand why people get this sort of vindictive mentality where they think, I'm gonna teach those people a lesson. I'm gonna show them who's boss and give them a hard time. You have nothing. You have nothing to gain from that. You have nothing to benefit from creating problems for other people, making a hard time for other people. Nobody wins in that situation. I'm not saying that never happens in Russia. It may happen in Russia as well. I mean, I'm not saying the Russian people are always perfect or never do bad things. I'm just saying anybody who does that is creating more problems for themselves. So, if you're in Russia, you need to understand this idea. I emphasize this because it's so important. The whole basis of Russian society, the whole basis of Russian thinking, is not built around what's in the law. Most people don't really care too much of what's in the law. That's why a lot of corruption happens in Russia, because people are not really that concerned about what's legal and what's not. Even the cops are not that much concerned about what's legal and what's not. You think they're defenders of the law enforcement. Well, they're not really law enforcement, they're order enforcement. They're there to make sure people don't get out of hand. If you start doing something disruptive, if you start doing something that disturbs the public peace, the cops will try to stop you. But the cops are not necessarily there to represent what is written into Russian law books. That's not their purpose, and people don't really see them as being there for that. They're there to keep order and make sure that people don't get violent or steal things or break things, stuff like that. That's what the police are here for. So, when you are in Russia, understand that everything you are, everything you do, is based on your relationships with other people. That's something I didn't realize when I first came to Russia. When I was here the first time, I had this sort of Westerner mentality, and I was more thinking about, the Western ideas of what's illegal and what's legal, human rights, things like that. Let me tell you, I'm going to say this very directly. In Russia, human rights don't exist. You don't have human rights here. And it's not even a bad thing, because it's not about something that's, people try to codify human rights and say, here's a list of the rights that you have. No, it's not about some list. It's not about some list that some politicians wrote. It's about how people treat each other. If you treat people well, they'll treat you well. That's it. It's that simple. That is the basis of Russian society. And that's why I kind of like the idea, because, again, I don't believe that you can codify correct human behavior. I don't think that you can write people are not robots. You can't just write a program and say, here, do this. This is good human behavior. It's not that simple. You have to think about other people and about how your words and actions impact them. I think that is what Russians do. And I think that's why there's something very critically important in Russian society that Western societies don't understand. I'm talking like I have an agenda here. I don't have a specific political agenda. I'm not being paid by Putin or anyone to say this. I'm just saying this because I understand Russia a little better now. I used to live here. I've been here. I've talked to a lot of Russian people, so I kind of get the idea now. I understand how it works. And I'm saying this so that you understand. If you have any interest in Russia, if you want to go to Russia, or even if you just deal with Russian people, I want you to understand this is how it works. I say this so that you can better understand. And I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. Please don't ask me to make any moral judgments about whether the Russian system is right or wrong, or whether it's better than the Western system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's different. And obviously I am biased because I think I personally see something of value in it. And I mean, I love Russia. I mean, I think it's become apparent. I really like Russia. I really like Russian culture, Russian society. I mean, I love Russia and the Russian people. And so maybe I'm biased. But again, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm not saying that one group of people is better than any other. I'm just saying this so that you hopefully will understand. And if you're not willing to accept that idea, if you're not willing to accept that laws and human rights have no value here, that it's not about what rights or laws are written into the law or into some Bill of Rights or whatever, but rather what's important here is your relationships with other people and how you treat other people. If you're not willing to accept that, then you probably shouldn't come to Russia. Maybe as a tourist, like, I mean, you know, you can come to Russia as a tourist for a week or two, but don't try to live in Russia, because if you're not willing to accept that idea, you probably will not fit in Russia, in Russian society. That's what it's about. Anyway, sorry, I know I got off in a bit of a tangent, but this is just, I want to clarify, because thinking back on some statements I made in videos yesterday, actually I guess that was 2 days ago, yeah, I think 2 days ago, I realized that those statements could be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and I wanted to just say some follow-up to that. Anyway, it's still raining. I'm still standing here in the rain, my camera's getting wet, and I'm getting wet, so I'm gonna stop filming and go inside and take a train out of Russia. I'm sad. I'm actually very sad to be leaving Russia. It's been 7 years, like I said, it's been 7 years since I was here in Saint Petersburg, and the city hasn't changed much, and I'm actually happy about that. The city doesn't need to change. It's a beautiful city. I like both cities that I've seen here. Now, I've been to Moscow, I've been to Saint Petersburg. They're both beautiful cities. I think if you like what you've seen, they're both worth a vacation visit. So yeah, I'm sad to be leaving, but oh well. Again, you can't always get what you want. You can't always have everything you want. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up, turn off the camera, and go inside. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Hope that you enjoyed. Hope that this was at least somewhat interesting. I will sign off and say peace out.